Sir, to begin with, I would like to know how do you perceive the role of Sanskrit in modern world, especially in the context of an institution like IIT Madras?
So first and foremost, my father is a retired professor of Sanskrit. He retired in 1998. He's 85 years old. He's a scholar in Indian logic and Indian philosophy, specifically Advaita. The way I look at Sanskrit, I can't speak in Sanskrit, but I can understand Sanskrit. I can read Sanskrit. I can write Sanskrit. There are three facets to that. One is, of course, the religious aspect. All the pujas and other things that we do are in Sanskrit, and there are the religious aspects, and we will try to keep that away, being from an educational perspective. The second aspect today is there are many important text and dramas, poetries, and prose that we see in Sanskrit, which are very important for a day-to-day living aspect, right? So it teaches us how to live, it teaches us how to conduct, it teaches us a lot of ethics, moral values. So these are all some things about a lot of subhashitas that we have, a lot of things that we get from Ramayana, a lot of things that we get from Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita. So many things, so many simple things that are very well explained with analogies and practical values. Sanskrit as a language has a lot of scientific content. If you look at Tarka Sangraha, for example, there are a lot of scientific content. If you look at the power of argumentation that Adi Shankara brings in Advaita philosophy, especially books like Advaita Siddhi, etc. The Nyaya Bodhini, the Muktavali, that series of books where the arguments are there. There are basic 5 different arguments, starting from Mangalavada, Tamavada, and different vadas. That you see. These are things that are basically extremely important from the way you start basically doing a research also, right? So see, first and foremost, you need to be logically coherent, right? When you write your research papers, when you present, when you talk, right? You should be logically coherent. You can't be talking something orthogonal, becomes boring. You need to have clarity. I basically believe in this. Clarity and cogency is best reconciled with brevity, right? So how can you be brief and you can basically bring in clarity and cogency? I think many of this, not beating around the bush type of things, these come very solid in the Sanskrit texts, specifically the philosophical text and the logical Indian logic text, the Tarka Sangraha and the derivatives. Okay, so this is another very important, and from a language perspective, the entire Paninian grammar offers a very, very way of evolution of the language, including the basic grammar, the Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi, the Siddhanta Kaumudi, and then you can also look at Shabda Bodham and other things also. So it sort of these two aspects of Sanskrit are extremely important, and I feel anybody who learns the language with some passion richly benefits by this. The way they conduct, the way they behave, the way they have their moral and ethical values. This is one part. The second part is, of course, the scientific content, the power of argumentation, the power of summarization, understanding the language, clarity, thoughts. Those process also comes in. Okay, so these two are the non-religious aspect of Sanskrit. I'm blessed to be part of all these three. So
to continue, sir, we would like to know, in recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in Sanskrit among the younger generation. So what do you think has contributed to this renewed fascination with Sanskrit?
So Ramayana and Mahabharata actually played, the two Ramayana sagas, basic things, literally played a very important role in the renewed interest in Sanskrit, in my opinion. Okay, this is one part. The second part is also that the research, the increase is not just in Sanskrit as a language. I think in language itself there is a renewed interest. So people are looking at reading any of the languages, their mother tongue, in a much more broader perspective, because they feel that a good grip in the language can basically enhance their ability to think. So there is a theory by Saber which says if you don't know the language in which you can think, you can't even think, right? So you start thinking, you should think in that language. You need the language, right? So otherwise, so that's why we say, when we come to research, there should be a language of logic, right? So it's not just that I'm a scholar in Tamil or Sanskrit or English. I can start doing any research because I have the language with me. I should be in a position to think in that language. So that is why. So we all know when we are introducing our BS in medical science and engineering, we say the language of medicine, right? So that's why in your eligibility test we put logical thinking, because what data science requires is logical thinking, right? So do you understand the language of logic, right? So this is very, very important. And think Sanskrit as a language has been faring very well. Any mother tongue actually is faring very well. See, so the power of the language in expression is essentially quite interesting, and this is true in say even in Sanskrit we have even it's not just singular and plural. We have also the dual, right? So Rama, Ramo, Ramaha. So the Ramo is there. So it essentially a lot of things just by a single word we can convey, and that precision and that very well formed rules, I think, makes the language also very interesting. So and people are also seeing there is also a religious intention on this. There are so many slokas which are very good, very pleasant to hear, and people want to recite this for their own personal benefits. And that, as you know, I see this Deva-Bhasha, IITM BS Sanskrit, there's Deva-Bhasha. So people also start reciting these slokas, and so that is also something which is growing as an interest from a religious perspective. And then we are also seeing the power of memorization. So people also, some research, whatever we say, kids don't listen, but when Google says people listen. So there are a lot more of Google articles now which says, if you memorize things at the early stage, if you can recollect things, that's a good exercise to do at the earliest stage of life. So that's also growing in interest. So these are some of the reasons why, in general, there has been good interest redeveloping in the languages.
Not just the fascination, but you have depicted the beauty of the language, sir. Thank you so much for that. Sir, your father is a Sanskrit professor, sir, and you are a computer science professor. How are Sir, your father is a Sanskrit professor, sir, and you are a computer science professor. How are your fields linked with each other, and what inspiration do you extract from his works?
Sir, the inspiration I extract from his work is, of course, the power of logic. The Indian logic, the Nyaya Shastra, the Tarka Shastra, is something phenomenal. The way they relate logic to philosophy is Annambhatta, when he wrote the Tarka Sangraha, he classified into 9 nameable objects, and in which Atma is one separate. And he now goes ahead and distinguishes the entire world, all the nameable objects in the world is different from Atma. And by this, he says that once you have this Padartha Jnana, you can basically find out that the ultimate reality is different from what you are seeing. Right? This is the way the Tarka Shastra builds. And in this process, he argues everything, that this is not Atma, this is not Atma, this is what, this is this. So he tries to now define every nameable object in the world that you see. And that a lot of scientific concepts come in. Right? There are a lot of scientific concepts come, a lot of different types of arguments come. Right? For example, ignorance is not absence of knowledge. Right? Ignorance is not absence of knowledge. So avidya, what you call, it's not absence of knowledge. Right? So how do you prove that? Right? That's a very nice. So all of us, you would have studied some amount of logic in your data science, right? There's something called infinite regress. Right? Infinite regress is a way by which you can say that the definition is wrong. This definition is wrong because of the infinite regress. There's something called Euler's infinite regress. It is some few centuries before. But Adi Shankara has argued this in his earlier text, some 2,500 years before. That is called Anavastha Dosham. Okay, Anavastha Dosham is infinite regress of modern day. What does he say? See, suppose I say, if you want to say that there is absence of one, suppose you want to prove that there is absence of one of your person, some Patel, right? So that means you should know who Patel is. Then only you can say he is absent, right? Correct? If I say there is no part in my room, you should know what a part is. Then only you can say that there is an absence of part. Correct? So when I say there is a need for absence of X, I need to have the knowledge of X. Then only I can say that there can be an absence of X. Correct? Now, if I say something is absence of knowledge, then it means I need knowledge of knowledge, which is an infinite regress. Right? So nothing could be defined as absence of knowledge. So avidya is not absence of knowledge. It's a very simple proof which Adi Shankara uses. It's a powerful logic. Correct? So this is where, now when we start writing theorems, when we can go and talk at those abstract levels of avidya and, Atma Swarupam and other things, all these simple computer science and other things become trivial. Okay, so these are all knowable, very. So when we can deal with abstractness, then we can deal with concreteness much easier. Right? This is my view. These are whatever he had been doing and he's continuing to do is how it's influencing me. Of course, his hard work and other things. I know he has gone. There's only one teacher who understood, the definition of a definition. It's called Lakshana Vichara. Lakshana means definition. How do you define? What is a definition? Define definition. Okay, there are 14. There's something called Chaturdasha Lakshani. So these are 14 definitions of definition. Okay, and there was only one person who knew it, and that it is his guru Navalbag. He's a Padma Bhushan Navalbakam Tatacharya. He stayed in Tirupati. Okay, so my father used to travel every week, every weekend, every Sunday morning. He goes to Tirupati, learn, finish his class, and come back. And he did for 22 years.
Oh my God.
Without a break.
Oh my
1,000
God.
times he has gone to Tirupati. He doesn't go
God.
up to see Lord. Just go, read the and come back. So these type of sincerity I have learned from, like in addition to all these things. Because anything that you want to seriously pursue comes with sincerity. If you don't have that sincerity, that's very important. Okay. So that is what that sincerity means, right? So that's also something very important. As a lesson about, if you ask me what I learned from my father, in addition to all this, I also learned that sincerity.